Welcome back into every game on the board, part number 3 with our three-hole hitter, Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas on Twitter, Barstool Sportsbook, wagertalk.com. Kelly, welcome in. How are you?
I thought I was going to get the hustle podcast from you there. The way you said it, I didn't have you on the screen. I was like, Drew, you're an hour early. We got the hustle here in about 45 minutes. So I am doing good. Just finished bet on it. Long day. I got to travel to Arizona tomorrow for a wedding. So I'm going to get some work done on the plane ride. But boy, do I feel like a little wound, a little tight today, if you will.
Hey, we always appreciate you taking the time, Kelly. I know the listeners like it. And guys, we are going top of the card on Saturday, 319, 320, Texas Tech, Iowa State, down to 344. That is the Illinois-Michigan game. So if you go to wagertalk.com, the live odds tab, college football, we are hitting every single game on the board. Those little numbers next to the team name, that's rotation numbers. We're going down in order. This is top of the card on Saturday. Texas Tech, Iowa State, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific kick here. 47.5 being the total, Kelly, -3 in the hook. That's Iowa State, the Cyclones in Ames, Iowa.
There's a lot to unpack in this one, Drew, and I'm going to just be completely honest. I'm going to stay away from this game, but I do have a slight nod to Iowa State, who has just been terrible in Big 12 play. I don't want to lay it with this team, but if you've been watching this show enough, you know exactly why I can't take the points with Texas Tech on the road. Sure, they need another win to become bowl eligible. I'm not sure it's going to happen here. This Iowa State defense has been pretty stout, but again, I cannot trust this team to be laying points even at home. It's going to be a cold one there in Ames, and I do think the weather and the Cyclones get the best of the Red Raiders.
All right, looking towards the home team, Iowa State, staying in the Big 12. Up next, a game Kelly is very familiar with here. 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 321, 322. Kansas State at West Virginia. We got the Wildcats, your Wildcats, Kelly in Vegas. 7.5 point road favorites, 54.5 being the total. Gonna have to ask them to win by margin. Can they do it?
We are, and normally, Drew, when teams are off back-to-back road games, I'm looking to fade them. Now, I'm not laying it here with the Wildcats, and Will Howard will be the starter because Adrian Martinez got hurt in that Baylor game, won't be back for a few weeks. But K-State, according to Mark Lawrence, 6-1 against the spread in the second game of a back-to-back conference road games. So that gives me a slight lean towards Kansas State here, but West Virginia has been super scrappy in Morgantown, just got the best of Oklahoma. I'm still kicking myself for leaving that one off my card, but I'll lean towards the Wildcats here. The Big 12 has been kind of a little screwy outside of TCU. While I do think TCU loses to Baylor this week, K-State controls their own destiny. Take that for what you will. But I do believe we'll see TCU and Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, Kelly, you just laid a bombshell there. TCU's going down. I'm hoping they're going to make the playoff.
Oh, Drew, I don't know. You know, I was just there with our good friend Chris Thurston, who you'll see up next on The Hustle, and we talked about it. And he said, you know, he left mid-third quarter of the game, and I knew he's in a bad mood. I would have been in a bad mood if my team only made one field goal and kind of got beat up that bad at home. But it was really interesting because when he got to the car, he was kind of mellowed out, and it was kind of quiet for about the first 10 minutes of the car ride back to Dallas. And I said, you know, you guys are going to beat TCU next week anyway. Like, you didn't care about this game, and he got kind of quiet. And he goes, what do you make the line? I said 3. Sure enough, opened 3. Already got bet. I bet Baylor +3. So I like Baylor in a what I would call a buy low spot. TCU handled business, solidified themselves in a Big 12 championship game, and we know this team's been overachieving all season long.
Oh man, stepping in front of them though. Sometimes it's just you know, they're riding the train there. But Kelly, the weekend was fun in Waco. Did you enjoy it?
Oh, yeah, I had a great time. It's always a good time to hang out with friends. It's never a good time to cheer against each other. But I kind of took it personally when he laid it with the Pats and I had the Colts when I was there at Gillette. So I figured now we're even.
Awesome. Big 12 showdown there in Waco. Going Kansas State's way. Unfortunately, I bet Baylor too. And they no-showed, but hey, it is what it is. As we head to Tallahassee.
Or you have to look at it this way, Drew. The K-State defense showed. And that's something that sometimes you get a little roller coaster ride from that team.
That is true. We got Lafayette, and that's Louisiana Lafayette versus Florida State up next. Tallahassee, I believe you went there either this year or last year, Kelly. They're laying 24 at home, 52 being the total. What'd you think of Tallahassee, and anything on this game?
I had a great time in Tallahassee, and don't tell the people in the swamp, but I enjoyed it more, except for Mike Novell in overtime. That one wasn't very much fun, but man, he's got this team playing really well. I know because I bet against him 3 times this year. I'm currently 1-2 against the spread betting against the Noles. That's not very much fun. I did get the outright winner with Wake, but Syracuse no-showed for me last week in my parlay. This is an interesting one because who does Florida State have on deck? That's right, in-state rival Florida. I think it's going to be a big game for the both of them. I would love to step in front of Florida State one more time. But this ULL team, since Billy Napier bolted and went to that same said Florida team, I don't know how I really feel about them being able to get up and go, but they were under him 6-0 against the spread as double-digit underdogs. So something to keep note of there, but I'm going to be passing on this one.
Penn State and Rutgers up next, 3:30 Eastern, 325, 326 as we're making our way down. -19, that is the Nittany Lions as the road favorite, 45 being the total in New Jersey.
Yeah, I don't want to lay points with Franklin ever, like ever. Hell, I don't even want to take points with him some days. This is a Penn State team that has shown us some moments and greatness over teams that, well, we expect them to be, like Maryland. Rutgers has been scrappy several times this year, but I just don't know if I trust them here either. I will say this, Mark Lawrence says that James Franklin as road chalk of more than 14 points, 10-1 against the spread. So I do have to give him a little bit of credit there, but I cannot trust this team on the road. Penn State is, listen, they are good against bad opponents and terrible against good opponents. And that's just an unfortunate part of this team. But I think you have to lay it or don't play it here.
Kelly, heading to the SEC up next, 7 o'clock Eastern here, 327, 328, Tennessee at South Carolina. Tennessee -21 to as high as -22 here, depending where we're shopping. 66 being the total in Columbia. Kelly, I got something I want to run by you. Feel free to shoot as many bullets into this philosophy as you want. Tennessee with one loss on the east side of the SEC, likely not going to make it to Atlanta for the SEC championship game, but they'll be waiting to make it into the playoffs. Style points matter. Josh Heupel, he was one going back to his UCF days. He will run it up on his opponents. I think that combination, I'm looking to lay it with Tennessee down the stretch. Do you have any thoughts?
This is a Gamecocks team, Drew, that I don't know a lot about. I'm really glad that I didn't take the points with them. They were on my long list last week, and Florida just absolutely routed them 38-6. Tennessee, you're right. There's an argument to be made whether they should get in or not because they're not going to let in a one-loss TCU team, and they may not let in a one-loss Pac-12 team. But we'll see how that one ends up panning out. I agree with you on the style points. But this is a lot of style points to be asked of, right? This one's a toughie. I'm going to pass yet again here, but I have a slight lean towards South Carolina. Maybe didn't look as bad as we saw in the swamp last week.
All right, maybe the home dog. We got North Carolina State and Louisville up next, 3:30 Eastern, 45 being the total. We're seeing Louisville -4 at home.
Yeah, NC State, boy, what an ugly loss to Boston College. That was kind of a fluky thing, right? And, this is Louisville, who I bet last week in Clemson, and Malik Cunningham was in like a weird I don't know if I tweeted that it was a cast. I was at a bar in Waco, Texas. It was on the little TV, so maybe it wasn't a cast, but it's still, you could definitely tell he was hurt. He got hurt in the second quarter and did not come back. So I've got a big question mark here with him. But if I find out he's a go, and this one keeps getting bet up, which currently is being bet down, I lean towards the Wolfpack here. I don't think that they're as bad as we saw. And that's sometimes like a buy low spot or situationally how I like to look at it. Marco D'Angelo gave this one out as his, I believe, sandwich spot because on bet on it just a few minutes ago. So that's why he kind of put this one on my radar. Louisville has Kentucky on deck. And this is a very winnable game versus Kentucky next week. Maybe they're looking ahead here.
Interesting. Yeah. In-state rival there. up against Kentucky next week. We got Syracuse and Wake up next, 8 o'clock Eastern in Winston-Salem. We're seeing the Demon Deacons minus 10-point home favorites, 56 being the total against the Qs.
Yeah, I think Syracuse just looks just defeated, right? They've now dropped 4 straight, if you include that 21-10, basically choke job by them in Death Valley. I don't know what to make of this team. I thought they would get up for the number 23 team in the country last week. They haven't. 11 points in their last 2 games. Come on. That's disgusting. I can't trust this team. At least Sam Hartman tries to make plays downfield. At least this defense is going to show something, because that's, from what we saw from the Orange, that's just not a team I can get behind. Bottom line, this is a lot of points, but there's no way I touch the Orange here.
Staying in the ACC, up next, Duke at Pitt. Pitt minus 7 in the hook at home, 50 being the total up against Duke here, Kelly.
Yeah, I think I have to take the better run defense plus the points here. They've only allowed 6 touchdowns on the ground as of this season. Pitt can't pass the ball, so how are they going to score? They're going to have to run it. I think this is going to be a lot closer than the spread indicates. I like Duke, and I put them in my 3-team moneyline parlay for this week, Drew.
Look out for that at Kelly in Vegas on Twitter. How else can people watch the parlay video?
Yeah, it'll be out Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, as it is every week. It'll be basically the last one of the season. So we gotta do something here, because the last few weeks have not been fun whatsoever. Drew, this has been a tough year. These underdogs, whether I'm leaving them off the list like I've done the last couple of weeks, finally I just started tweeting out my entire list, because at least then you can cherry pick your own. I've been doing a terrible job picking, but I do think Duke gets the best of Pittsburgh here.
All right, look towards the Duke Blue Devils as the 7.5-point underdog there up against Pitt. We get heading to the Big Ten up next. East Lansing, Michigan State minus 10 in the hook at home, 47.5 being the total as they host the Indiana Hoosiers, Kelly.
Drew, do you really want to lay this many points with Sparty? And then on the flip side, you've got 17 or less in the last 4 or 5 games from the Hoosiers. I think that Sparty's trending upwards, right? We gave them a lot of grief, and they went in to Illinois as 17-point underdogs, missing some key players, and got the win. But they have been so sloppy. So sloppy. And I can't trust them here laying points. And so it's just easier to pass.
Virginia Tech Liberty up next. We're seeing the Flames minus 9 in the hook, actually bumped up mostly minus 10s now at home, 46.5 being the total. Hokies at the Flames.
Still kicking myself for not betting that Liberty letdown and look ahead spotter, if you will, last week at UConn. I was so frustrated with myself on that one. Virginia Tech, though, boy, woof. This team has been so frustrating all season long. You'd think that they'd want to show some face. If they could get a win here, then they won't be in last place. It'll be their in-state rival, Virginia, next week for sole last position in the ACC. God, I bet they can't wait for basketball season in the good state of Virginia. But I can't lay it here with Liberty. I do think Liberty has been a scrappy underdog all season. They've won for me on a couple of different occasions as outright dogs. But now we're asking to be big-time chalk, and I think that's asking just a little too much from this team.
Guys, we got 3 games left. We're talking with Kelly in Vegas on Twitter, Kelly Stewart, Barstool Sportsbook, wagertalk.com. Check out her show Bet On It on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Also Money Shots on Barstool Sportsbook YouTube as well with Megan making money. Kelly, we usually do this on Thursday. We had to do it on what? You're traveling for the holidays?
No, I actually am going to a wedding. I know I don't go
said.
to weddings during football season.
Must be somebody important.
Unfortunately. Still, I went and bought a dress this morning. That's the type of girl I am. But I'm ready to go, fly out to tomorrow. So I appreciate you being flexible with this, Drew.
Oh, absolutely. Are you spending Thanksgiving in the Sunshine State, or are you?
That's the plan. I will be back to spend Thanksgiving in the Sunshine State, and then I hopefully will be heading to Dallas for the Big 12 championship game right after my birthday. Then I'm going to Baltimore to see Ariel Epstein and watch her Ravens just absolutely demolish the Broncos. Back to the Sunshine State to take Grandma to the Bucs Saints game. And then maybe I can like just stay home for the first couple weeks, brush up on some college basketball, and watch some bowl games.
Yeah, just chill out for a little while. As we got Miami and Clemson up next, ACC battle here. Tigers -19 at home, 48 being the total. Miami Hurricanes in Clemson, South Carolina here, Kelly.
Can you trust Clemson's offense here? Now, I know they looked decent last week, and the Louisville team that I bet against did not. Can Miami even score, though? That's the flip side. I mean, Joe Ranieri yells at me all the time, whether it's on the hustle or whether it's on Bet on It, and says, Kelly, don't get Cristobaled.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So Clemson has been on a nice little series win streak here, 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 versus Miami. Has Miami packed it in offensively? I can't trust this team, but I'm definitely not laying it here with Clemson.
Ohio State and Maryland up next. Buckeyes minus near 4 touchdowns, seeing -27.5 at most sports books here, Kelly. 63 being the total. Buckeyes heavily favored in College Park. You liking anything Ohio State and Maryland?
I almost was going to say pass on this game. I want nothing to do with it, but I called our good friend Ralph Michaels this morning and said, hey, do you have any trends and angles on how the Buckeyes are prior to playing Michigan? And he said, give me 20 minutes. And guess what? They're just 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 prior to playing Michigan. We know that Ohio State's kind of struggled in the first half this year, whether that was against Iowa or Northwestern. I know Maryland's not a good football team, and we spoke about them to start the show versus Penn State. But I kind of have to wonder if Ohio State isn't looking ahead here. A lean towards taking the points with the Terps. Maybe Terps first half is a better play.
I like that stat. So 1-7 ATS last 8 week prior to Michigan. That's Ohio State, right?
Absolutely. And you know what's scarier is I took my best bet Illinois. And then after I gave that to the Bet on It producers, he said, yeah, but Michigan's really good the week prior playing Ohio State. So it's kind of a really interesting dynamic there, depending on how you like to spin it. We all know trends and angles. You don't bet on or against a team because of it, but if it helps build your argument, and I think that Maryland first half is probably the way to go here.
Yeah, and it's also been the same head coach, Ryan Day, for what, 5-ish years.
Something like that.
Yeah, so he's a big part of that. Interesting. Love the stat there, Kelly, as we got, 2 games left here. Illinois, Michigan, speaking of Illinois, 42 being the total, -17.5, -18. That's Michigan in the Big House.
Spoiler alert, I did not remember that we were going to be talking about this game because I'm all discombobulated on Wednesday. So sorry for skipping ahead there. Hey, no disrespect to Jim Wooldridge. That would be K-State's old basketball coach, Jim Harbaugh. They're 10-0. Congrats to this team. They've looked pretty solid throughout most of the season. Now, we've got a noon sleepy kick. And we've got Ohio State playing later in the afternoon. All they have to do is just get the W here. I think this is entirely too many points for that Illini defense. Second in the nation against some really good FBS teams as far as keeping teams to a season low yardage. I really wish actually when Ralph called me after the show and said, hey, Michigan's been really good prior to playing Ohio State. I wish he wouldn't have told me that because it kind of made me take a step back and go, okay, maybe I'm missing something here. But this team hasn't really showed me a ton of discipline. And I know that it's kind of a buy low spot. I bet against this Illinois team last week with Purdue, kicked myself for not having a single dollar on the money line. But Illinois has kind of fallen a little bit from grace. But I do think Bielema gets his squad up. This is a much bigger game for Illinois than it is for Michigan. And they kind of still control their own destiny, if you will, in the West, right? They can somehow get a win here. They can probably stay atop those rankings, but it's a toughie, right? Winning in the Big House is tough. This Michigan team doesn't lose there very often. So I ended up not putting them on my parlay card, but I do think that they keep it well within the 2 scores.
Sure. The defense. Yeah, you bring it up. I mean, tough place to play, but there is up to as high as 20 miles per hour winds projected. So that might help.
A little bit of weather. You know, you mentioned Ryan Day, and Harbaugh sometimes as well will do that kind of Bill Snyder-esque, like really gross playbook because you don't want to show Ohio State very much the week prior. So kind of hoping for that to go my way as well.
Yeah, could see that happen. Absolutely, guys. That's going to do it for the segment. Top of the card here on the Saturday slate. Our part number 2, Kelly in Vegas on Twitter, Kelly Stewart, Barstool Sportsbook, wagertalk.com. Bet on it. Money shots with Megan making money. In her parlay coming out on Friday. So Kelly, thanks for the time as always. Do you have a most confident play? One that you like the most for the listeners, and any final thoughts?
Illinois is the one that I gave out as my best bet on. Bet on it for you guys. I will give out Duke. I think Duke is definitely worthy of a money line sprinkle here. I also think, sorry, Pat Narduzzi, they might even have the coaching edge.
Duke plus 7.5. All right. Wow, you don't like Narduzzi kicking some field goals there for
Pitt? We all know. He's been on my shit list for a long time, Drew.
Awesome.
Well, let me rephrase that. Particularly when laying points. Okay? Like, come on. You can't – it's hard to cover when you're kicking 3 when you should be going up 7.
Well said, Kelly. And shout out to you, Preston, in the chat box here. And yeah, guys, feel free to reply below in the reply section. Any questions, all is welcome. So Kelly will be back, as will I, on the Hustle, 6 o'clock Eastern, Wager Talk YouTube channel. Come and join us. Thanks to Kelly Stewart, and thanks for tuning in. Cash those tickets. We will be back tomorrow with Robbie Vino finishing off the Every Game on the Board podcast. Cash those tickets until